Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour, Donald Trump announces Iran-Israel ceasefire effective 400 GMT on Tuesday. Conditions bind Iran to start first and Israel to join after 12 hours. Iran says it will stop attacks if Israel does. Hours after Israel issues evacuation warning, Tehran rocked by powerful explosions early hours on Tuesday. Blasts occurred hours before ceasefire was to come into effect. Flights resume in Qatar as airspace reopens following temporary closure after tensions soared in West Asia. 290 Indian nationals and one Sri Lankan national evacuated from Iran's Mashhad under Operation Sindhu. 2003 Indian nationals evacuated safely from Iran so far. Health warnings issued as potentially life-threatening heat wave envelopes eastern US. High temperatures forecast in Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York and Boston. And in sports, England need 350 more runs while India required 10 wickets as Leeds Test heads into a thrilling Day 5 showdown. Our top story, amid intensifying global scrutiny over the Israel-Iran conflict, US President Donald Trump on Tuesday claimed the end of 12-day conflict, saying both sides have agreed to a staggered ceasefire beginning Tuesday. As outlined by Trump, the ceasefire would be a phased 24-hour process beginning at around 0400 GMT Tuesday, with Iran unilaterally halting all operations. Israel would follow suit 12 hours later. Writing on Monday evening on his Truth Social platform, Donald Trump said, and I quote him here, "Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. For 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful." Unquote. And Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi refuted Trump's claim, saying no agreement reached on any ceasefire between Israel and Iran. He, however, said that if Israel stopped its illegal aggression against the Iranian people no later than 0030 GMT or 0930 IST on Tuesday, Iran had no intention of continuing its response afterwards. Araghchi said the final decision on the cessation of our military operations will be made later. Meanwhile, any comment from Israel on ceasefire is still awaited. A series of powerful explosions rocked Tehran early Tuesday morning. Warplanes buzzed overhead as explosions shook the north and center of Iran's capital around 2330 GMT. The blast occurred just hours before a staggered ceasefire was due to take effect, with Iran unilaterally halting all operations, according to an announcement by Donald Trump. An announcement follows an Iranian attack on US forces at Al Udeid Airbase in Qatar in retaliation for the US strikes on its nuclear sites. The Qatari authorities said short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles were fired from Iran, which were successfully intercepted by the authorities. The officials confirmed that there had been no impact on the base just outside Qatar's capital, Doha. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi later added that the country is ready to respond again if the US takes any further action. Meanwhile, Trump earlier said Iran had a very weak response and thanked the country's leadership for providing early notice of the retaliatory attack. Earlier on Monday, US Vice President J.D. Vance said Iran was no longer able to build a nuclear weapon after US strikes destroyed its infrastructure. He said that equipment required for building the infrastructure have been destroyed. Take a listen.
Now, Iran is incapable of building a nuclear weapon with the equipment they have because we destroyed it. So that's a very, very big thing. And I think that's what the president is really trying to figure out here, is to build a long-term settlement here to where we can have peace in the region, where our regional allies and, of course, the American people, most importantly, can be secured, but where we can ensure that the destruction of the Iranian nuclear program that has already happened is not something they try to rebuild.
Meanwhile, oil prices have continued to tumble following President Trump's announcement of a ceasefire. The global benchmark Brent crude has dropped another 4% to just over $68 a barrel. That follows a 7% drop in Monday's trading session. Oil prices are now lower than 12th June, when Israel first launched an attack on Iran. And global shares rallied and the dollar extended declines on Tuesday after Trump's ceasefire announcement. S&P 500 future was up 0.6% and Nasdaq futures was 0.9% higher. The MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan jumped 1.8%, while Japan's Nikkei rallied 1.4%. China's blue chips also rose 1%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng index gained 1.7%. Already to talk more on Iran-Israel conflict, DD India's Akshay Dongre is joining us live from Delhi. Akshay, a lot of developments happened overnight through the day in that part of the region. Iran retaliated, hitting US base in Qatar. Trump responded by saying that it's a weak response, then Trump posting that there would be a ceasefire. Iran says nothing has been agreed. Break it down for us, please. What details do you have?
Well, Abhishek, it's quite a funny way things have turned out, especially last night. But one thing that we have seen for sure, especially in the Middle East, is that anything can happen under the administration of Donald Trump. It seems that Trump is was fixated on one point, that he has to take certain retaliation as far as the Iranian nuclear program is concerned. There was also pressure from Israel coming in, so US had to do something. But all in all, if we talk about all the developments of the last 24 hours, they are also quite surprising. Because Abhishek, we have seen that how this entire thing was escalating, but now that things are moving towards rather a ceasefire, which is a great news for the entire world. We can clearly see a pattern here that and that was also said or rather written on social media by Donald Trump, that the Iranian side had informed them, even if it was just a hint. This is usually what is happening in war nowadays. Adversaries are informed so that minimum casualties take place. That's what we are seeing in the West Asia. Earlier it was between Hezbollah and the Israeli side, that any kind of attacks that were taking place were not leaving. They were either being intercepted or were not having a lot of casualties. So this is indeed seems to it seems that this has happened last night. That the kind of actions that have been taken more because of domestic pressures coming in for their government to do something about the kind of insult that they have taken as far as the attacks are concerned. So Israel killed several of the IRG Iranian Revolutionary Guards senior officers. As far as this nuclear program is concerned, several bombings had taken place. So Iran clearly knew that as far as capabilities are concerned, they were lacking. They were not getting a lot of allies to come out open in their support. And if an all-out war happens, not only will the top leadership will be removed forcefully, but the kind of capabilities that were showed by the US side meant that there would be a lot of casualties of the people as well. But when we saw the B-2 bombers going, and there were claims that several of the nuclear facilities have been destroyed. But then later the satellite images came, and they also showed minimum damage. One thing had become clear, that attack by the US was just a show. It was a force, demonstrator that if you do not fall back in line, or if you do not step back from war, this is something that you are going to face, and these planes can devastate your entire cities if they cannot be even caught on radar. So they simply did not have technology. They were outplayed and outclassed when it comes to warfare. One thing, we saw the kind of action that was taken by the US. Then in retaliation, Iran had to do something, and it seems that the kind of action that they took at the Qatari base was also in retaliation of this only. It was also signaling that, see, we are doing so that the domestic population is happy, that their regimes have done something against the adversary. But now, since everyone has seen the horrors of war, people do not really want to get more into it, and that perhaps is the reason why everyone has decided to step back now with some kind of damage done to the adversary, but minimum one, so that the war doesn't escalate and everyone is happy back home as well.
Akshay, it has had big impact on the markets as well. Oil prices have continued to tumble, and global oil prices record sharpest single-day decline in 5 years.
Well, that's great news also, that perhaps is happening because this war, this tension has been building on for far too long. It has been years since the 7th October attack that the tensions have been building. So people have been assuming, worst, that any kind of action that will be taken on Iran, or any kind of action against Iranian nuclear facilities, will be devastating the entire region. But now we have seen that phase as well. We have seen that worst as well, that actually both the countries attacked against each other. Iran also launched attacks at Qatari base. That clearly means that the worst is over now. So the market realizes that the worst that they have been expecting as far as the attack on 7th October is concerned, because tensions have been building up for far too long. That is over, and the oil prices companies that the oil prices that were going up, rather, Abhishek, because of the tensions, have now suddenly realized that the worst is over. So the oil prices are tumbling down, because the tensions have de-escalated, and it will be interesting to see that how the oil market responds in long term to this ceasefire.
All right, Akshay, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for getting us the latest on that story. Meanwhile, India on Monday evacuated 290 nationals and one Sri Lankan citizen from conflict-hit Mashhad in Iran. With a fresh batch of evacuees, India has brought back 2,003 Indians from Iran so far. India launched Operation Sindhu last week to bring back Indians from Iran and Israel in view of increasing hostilities between the two nations. Indians in affected Iranian cities such as Tehran have been relocated to safer areas within the country by officials of the Indian Embassy in Tehran. Additionally, authorities have moved some Indian nationals to safer locations within Iran or to neighboring areas for onward travel to India. In Israel, India is evacuating its nationals through land routes to Jordan and Egypt, followed by a flight to India. All right, still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. The two-day NATO summit is set to begin on Wednesday in The Hague, Netherlands. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a new defense co-production initiative. And Vera C. Rubin Observatory reveals first images of the cosmos.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. when supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. In other part of the world, the two-day NATO summit is set to begin on Wednesday in The Hague, Netherlands. The top priority is agreeing on a new defense spending target of 5% GDP that is pushed by President Trump. NATO members will be expected to spend 5% of GDP on defense and security, up from the current 2% target. This includes 3.5% for core defense like troops and weapons and 1.5% for broader areas such as infrastructure and cybersecurity. Currently, 22 of 32 NATO countries meet or exceed the 2% goal, but spending varies widely, with Poland at over 4% and Spain below 1.3%. The new target aims for all members to meet this by 2035. The increase is driven by concerns over Russia's war in Ukraine and possible threats to Europe, along with US calls for greater burden sharing. The new funds will go towards capabilities like air defense, fighter jets, drones and logistics. However, some countries like Spain have expressed reluctance to fully meet the new spending goals. This is the first time City is hosting the NATO summit and is under country's largest ever security operation called Orange Shield. Leaders from all 32 member nations are attending the summit, plus Ukraine's Zelensky has made his presence felt with meeting leaders. NATO chief Mark Rutte said this is a quantum leap that is ambitious, historic and fundamental to securing the future.
The defense investment plan that allies will agree in The Hague introduces a new baseline, 5% of GDP to be invested in defense. This is a quantum leap that is ambitious, historic and fundamental to securing our future. The new defense investment plan is the key deliverable for this summit and will be decisive when it comes to ensuring effective deterrence in defense.
Meanwhile, Mark Rutte also said that Spain is not exempt from a defense spending deal after Madrid claimed it would not have to hit the alliance's headline target of 5% of GDP.
NATO has no opt-outs and NATO doesn't know side deals or side deals. So that's on the particular question you ask about Spain. What all allies will do is that, of course, they have the sovereign right and also the flexibility to determine their path for delivering on the NATO commitments. That means how much they will spend annually, and this is exactly what we are doing. The big difference from the Welsh pledge in 2014 is this, that there will be annual reports on what nations are spending, there will be regular reviews on what is happening.
The UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced Britain's commitment to spend 5% of its economic output on defence. Starmer had in February pledged to increase core UK defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027 and 3% sometime in the early 2030s. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a new defence co-production initiative on Monday during a short visit by the Ukrainian President to London to discuss his country's defence against Russia. The trip comes on the eve of a NATO summit in The Hague, which Zelensky is due to attend. The two leaders announced the deal in the garden of Starmer's Downing Street residence, where they also met Ukrainian troops being trained in Britain. Speaking alongside Starmer, Zelensky said the deal would help strengthen both nations as he thanked Britain for its support in the conflict against Russia, while Starmer said both had an excellent bilateral meeting and agreed an industrial military co-production agreement.
And the good result of today's our meeting is this additional decision of co-production, and I think it will be very strong and will strengthen both nations. It's very important, yes, to share our experience, your experience, by the way, first of all, your experience on the battlefield and your knowledge and experience during interflex training missions. So I'm very thankful for this meeting, for the decision of support militarily and financially.
We've just had an excellent bilateral meeting this afternoon. We've discussed the issues across the conflict, what more we can do to support. And I'm really proud that this afternoon we're able to announce an industrial military co-production agreement, the first of its kind so far as Ukraine and the UK are concerned, which will be a massive step forward now in the contribution that we can continue to make.
Earlier, President Zelensky met with the Speaker of the House of Commons of the UK Parliament, Lindsay Hoyle, and the Lord Speaker of the House of Lords, John McFall. President thanked the people, government and the Parliament of the United Kingdom for their principled support of Ukraine. During the meeting, the parties discussed continued support and cooperation, transatlantic unity and diplomatic efforts with all allies to stop Russian aggression and bring the conflict to an end. They also discussed the situation in the Middle East. Moving on to Russia-Ukraine conflict, waves of Russian drones and missiles in and around Kiev overnight killed 10 people. Residential areas and the entrance to a metro station bomb shelter is said to be damaged less than a kilometer from the US Embassy. Ukraine's Air Force said it had downed 339 of 352 drones and 15 of 16 missiles launched by Russia in the attack on 4 Ukrainian regions. In the area around the southern Black Sea port of Odessa, Regional Governor Ole Kuiper said the number of people killed in a separate missile attack had risen to 3. Moscow has stepped up drone and missile strikes on Kiev and other Ukrainian cities in recent weeks. Monday's strikes come a day before NATO's annual summit is held in The Hague, while President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Britain to discuss defense. Now, Canada and the European Union on Monday signed a defense and security pact as the transatlantic partners seek to better confront Russia with worries over US reliability under President Donald Trump. The deal was announced after a summit in Brussels between Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and EU chiefs Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa. The pact opens the door for Ottawa to join common procurements under a recently approved $174 billion loan program backed by EU's central budget to boost rearmament. It also paves the way for Canadian defence firms to tap into the scheme, although that requires the signing of a separate deal. The EU is Canada's second biggest commercial partner. Britain signed a similar defence partnership in May, and Australia and the EU announced they had started negotiating another one last week. Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that EU will not give up its right to make policy decisions in negotiations with the United States to avert higher US tariffs on EU goods.
In general, negotiations are only closed at the moment everything is negotiated, but I'm very clear on some topics that touch the sovereignty of the decision-making process in the European Union. This is for us absolutely untouchable. So we're very clear about that. Of course, we discuss tariff lines. We discuss non-tariff barriers like standards and norms, for example. We discuss strategic purchases. We discuss all these topics. But where it is the sovereign decision-making process in the European Union and its member states that is affected, this is too far.
And after the summit, Mark Carney said that Canada and the United States have a chance to build a new economic and defense partnership, but nothing is guaranteed yet.
What options are we considering? I'll give you an open answer. We'll do what's right for Canada. We're working hard to get a deal, but we'll only accept the right deal with the United States. The right deal is possible, but it's nothing's assured.
Moving on, Syrian authorities on Monday announced arrest over a suicide blast targeting a church by the Islamic State group. The shooting and suicide bombing that occurred at the St. Elias Church in Syrian capital claimed lives of 25 people. Syria's Interior Ministry said the suicide bomber was a member of Islamic State. He entered the church, opened fire, and then detonated his explosive vest. The ministry also reported arrest of a number of criminals involved in the attack and the seizure of explosive devices and a booby-trapped motorcycle during a security operation near Damascus. The attack fed fears among Syria's minorities that their communities are more exposed to attacks and harassment since Islamist-led rebels toppled former leader Bashar al-Assad in December. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way on Monday for President Donald Trump's administration to resume deporting migrants to countries other than their own. The justices lifted a judicial order that required the government to give migrants set for deportation to third countries a meaningful opportunity to tell officials they are at risk of torture at their new destination while a legal challenge plays out. The brief order was unsigned and came with no reasoning, as is common when the court decides emergency request. After the Department of Homeland Security moved in February to step up rapid deportations to third countries, immigrant rights groups filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of a group of migrants seeking to prevent their removal to such places without notice and a chance to assert the harms they could face. Now, tourism and local business in the Dominican Republic came to a halt after massive amounts of sargassum algae washed ashore in the province of Samana. Boat operators and tour guides in the region reported a sharp drop in excursions as visitors avoided the beaches. Researchers from a regional institute are currently studying the unpredictable ocean currents to better forecast future sargassum arrivals. Since 2018, the Dominican Republic has been heavily impacted by sargassum, affecting dozens of beaches and the livelihoods of coastal communities, especially in the popular tourist destination of Samana. Tens of millions of people sweltered across the U.S. Northeast and Midwest on Monday as record high heat disrupted electricity supplies and train travel. Some East Coast trains were halted en route for safety precautions on Monday. Heat warnings, which began over the weekend and are set to continue through the week, were in effect across much of the United States. East Coast officials warned that as the heat combines with humidity, many places could see conditions that feel like 43 degrees Celsius. The National Weather Service warned that nighttime temperatures may not offer much respite from the oppressive heat. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile released its first images of deep space on Monday, sparking excitement among astronomers worldwide. Captured by the world's largest digital camera, the image showcased millions of galaxies, stars and asteroids. The observatory, perched atop Cerro Pachon at 8,900 feet, captured stunning panoramas and time-lapse videos. One remarkable image presents a panoramic view of the Virgo galaxy cluster displaying an array of celestial objects, while another composite image captures the Trifid and Lagoon nebulae glowing in vivid pink against a red-orange backdrop. In merely 10 hours of observation, Rubin also identified 2,104 previously unknown asteroids within the solar system, including 7 near-Earth objects, all confirmed as harmless to the planet. Time now for a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. India heads out at OIC for factually incorrect comments. India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval holds a crucial meeting with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Beijing. And we'll get you weather updates. Gujarat remains under a yellow alert. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of our top stories. Donald Trump announces Iran-Israel ceasefire effective 400 GMT on Tuesday. Conditions bind Iran to start first and Israel to join after 12 hours. Iran says it will stop attacks if Israel does. Hours after Israel issues evacuation warning, Tehran rocked by powerful explosions early hours on Tuesday. Blasts occurred hours before ceasefire was to come into effect. Flights resume in Qatar as airspace reopens following temporary closure after tensions soared in West Asia. To 90 Indian nationals and one Sri Lankan national evacuated from Iran's Mashhad under Operation Sindhu. 2003 Indian nationals evacuated safely from Iran so far. Health warnings issued as potentially life-threatening heat wave envelops eastern US. High temperatures forecast in Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York and Boston. And in sports, England need 350 more runs while India required 10 wickets as Leeds test heads into a thrilling Day 5 showdown. India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval held a crucial meeting with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Beijing. During the meeting, both sides reviewed recent developments in India-China bilateral relations and underscored the need to promote the overall development of India-China bilateral relations, including by fostering greater people-to-people ties. India's NSA also emphasized the need to counter terrorism in all its forms and manifestations to maintain overall peace and stability in the region. Views were also exchanged on other bilateral, regional and global issues of mutual interest. The NSA is visiting China to attend the 20th meeting of the SCO Security Council Secretaries. India has categorically rejected references to the country at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Council of Foreign Ministers meeting and termed them as unwarranted and factually incorrect. External Affairs Ministry said that these statements driven by Pakistan, which has turned terrorism into statecraft, reflect the continued misuse of the OIC platform for narrow political ends. It said the OIC's repeated failure to acknowledge the real and documented threat of terrorism emanating from Pakistan reflects a disregard for facts and the global consensus on the fight against terrorism. New Delhi further stated that the OIC has no locus standi to comment on India's internal affairs, including Jammu and Kashmir, which is an integral and sovereign part of India. India said the comments made by Pakistan at the OIC meeting are an attempt to deflect international attention from its own record of state-sponsored terrorism, minority persecution, sectarian violence and failure of governance. Updates on India's weather now. India Met Department has forecast an increase in rainfall activity with isolated heavy to very heavy falls over northwest India from 25th June onwards. Heavy to very heavy rainfall activity is likely to continue over many parts of central, east and northeast India during next 7 days. Met Department said conditions are favourable for further advance of southwest monsoon over remaining parts of North Arabian Sea, some more parts of Rajasthan, Punjab, some parts of Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi, remaining parts of West Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh and remaining parts of Jammu during next 2 days. There is likelihood of light to moderate rainfall at most places over northeast, accompanied with thunderstorm, lightning and isolated heavy rainfall during the next 7 days. Monsoon is expected to hit the national capital on Tuesday, a few days earlier than usual, with the India Met Department placing the national capital under a yellow alert for rain and thunderstorms throughout the day. IMD has said that weather conditions are favourable for the monsoon to advance into more parts of Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh and Delhi. Typically, the southwest monsoon reaches Delhi around June 30th. Heavy rain lashed parts of India's financial capital Mumbai last night. The heavy rain comes as Mumbai continues to experience a variable monsoon season, with meteorologists forecasting more scattered showers over the coming days. India Met Department had issued advisory of heavy to very heavy rainfall at isolated places over West Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal and Sikkim in the next coming days. Gujarat witnessed a severe monsoon onslaught on Monday, prompting the closure of schools in several districts, including Surat. Met Department has forecast continued heavy rainfall across the state, issuing yellow alert for June 24th. From June 26 to 28, widespread rain with thunderstorms and lightning is expected to continue across the state. With the arrival of the monsoon, hill stations in Gujarat's Dang district, particularly Saputara and Girarhor, have witnessed a sharp surge in tourist footfall, drawing thousands of visitors from across Gujarat and neighbouring Maharashtra. Known for their lush greenery, waterfalls and mist-covered hills during the rainy season, both destinations have become popular weekend getaways for nature lovers and city dwellers seeking a break from the urban hustle. All right, we'll go across to DD India's Meghna Dev. She is joining us live from Ahmedabad. Meghna, good morning. Tell us the current situation there in Gujarat and also the adjoining areas, and what is the forecast for the next few days?
Yes, monsoon has intensified in Gujarat, Abhishek, and what we see is that South Gujarat is the most affected. We did see that flood-like situations were there in Surat. That is the reason that morning schools have been closed, and today there will be no morning schools that will be operating, not only in Surat but also in Tapi, which is also an adjoining district, wherein there was a heavy rainfall which resulted in flood-like situations. Obviously, that after that the traffic came to a standstill, and the authorities had a hard time declogging all the water. Besides, also we see that orange alert has been issued for a number of areas. The meteorological department has issued orange alert for Dahod, Vadodara, Chota Udaipur in central Gujarat, as well as the regions of Saurashtra, because we know that Saurashtra also received heavy rainfall when we are especially talking about Jamnagar, wherein the Ranjit Sagar Dam was overflowed, which actually was a good news for the citizens of Jamnagar, because this is the dam which provides for drinking water around the year. So in the first rain showers of the season, only this dam was overflown, which was a good news, wherein the locals also did celebrate. And as you said, especially for the Dang district, which is in South Gujarat, this district is very well known for its lush greenery. This is one of the districts of South Gujarat which has a hill station called Saputara. So this is the season when people from Maharashtra and especially from Gujarat, North Gujarat, Central Gujarat, go to Saputara to enjoy the greenery of the place and the natural beauty of the place. So the rains have also made it even more beautiful for the nearby sightseeing, small waterfalls, and obviously the hill station as a whole, because obviously there is a lot of respite from the existing warm temperatures that was there in Gujarat. So now obviously while the locals are also having a respite from the heat, but in some parts of Gujarat wherein we see that flood-like situations have emerged, but the NDRF teams have been deployed. We did see that in a number of places the NDRF teams have been deployed, helping helping with the efforts of ensuring that there is no untoward incident that happens. Besides, also what we see that in the coming days, light to moderate rainfall with thunderstorms has been predicted by the meteorological department, especially for regions of South Gujarat and Saurashtra. But also, as we are in Ahmedabad at the moment, we did see light showers yesterday as well, and today also, while there is a cloudy weather, it can be expected that light to moderate rainfall in Ahmedabad as well as in the neighborhoods. Besides this, also the fishermen have been asked not to venture into the sea till 27th of June. So, because of the high tide that is expected because of this cycle, as well as the intensity of the monsoon also. So this is the current situation in Gujarat. Besides, obviously, number of schools being closed because of the heavy rainfall here.
All right, Meghna, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for getting us the latest on that story. And in preparation for the upcoming Rath Yatra, the Puri District Administration conducted a mock drill at the Integrated Command and Control Centre located at the town police station complex. The exercise aimed to test emergency response protocols, coordination among security agencies and the functionality of surveillance and communication systems ahead of the grand annual festival, which attracts lakhs of devotees from across the country. All right, still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Amazon to invest £40 billion in UK over the next 3 years. Brad Pitt hits F1 London premiere with Tom Cruise, shares what surprised him most about racing. And we revisit the verdict that shook the government and the silence that followed. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Business updates now. Online retail giant Amazon will invest $54 billion in the UK over the next 3 years. In a bid to kickstart the economy, Prime Minister Keir Starmer met Amazon CEO Andy Jassy last week. He called this announcement as another major win to Britain's basket. The £40 billion will be used to build 4 distribution centres, creating an estimated 4,000 jobs, and to renovate the historic Brave Film Studios acquired in July 2024. The investment also includes part of £8 billion previously announced in September 2024 for building, operating and maintaining data centres in the UK aimed at boosting artificial intelligence computer capacity. To Amazon is currently under investigation by the UK food regulator, suspected of late payments to food suppliers. If found guilty, Amazon could be fined up to 1% of its annual UK turnover. And higher US tariffs on home appliances containing steel took effect on Monday following a government notice issued earlier this month. The move, led by President Donald Trump, could push up consumer goods prices. The Commerce Department has added 8 steel derivative products including refrigerators, washing machines, dishwashers and ovens to the tariff list with duties based on steel content. This follows Trump's move to double tariffs on steel and aluminium imports to 50%. Since January, he has imposed sweeping levies on imports from key trading partners, sparking warnings of inflation. Only the UK has struck a trade deal so far, allowing 100,000 cars to enter the US annually at a reduced 10% tariff, with further auto and metal agreements expected. All right, sports updates now. We'll start with cricket. The Leeds test between India and England is set for a dramatic finish heading into day 5. On day 4, India finished their second innings at 364, setting the host a challenging 371-run target to win. At stumps, England had moved cautiously to 21 for no loss, with Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett negotiating the final overs of the day unscathed. They now require another 350 runs on the final day. Earlier in the day, KL Rahul and Rishabh Pant stitched together a 195-run stand for the 4th wicket after the early dismissal of captain Shubman Gill. KL Rahul hit his 8th stun, while Rishabh Pant dazzled with flair and aggression, scoring 118 of 140 deliveries. Despite losing quick wickets at the end, India managed to build a commanding lead. The target of 371 is a record chase in England and sets up an intriguing day 5, with India eyeing early wickets and England hoping to defy history. Rain, however, could yet have a say in the outcome. All right, to talk more on this, DD India's Narayan Singh joins us from Delhi. Narayan, let's begin with the big picture. England needs 350 more runs to win. How difficult is that chase looking, especially on a day 5 pitch? Only once have India lost when defending a total in excess of 350.
Good morning, Abhishek. When we talk about this test match, it is right now poised, but an advantage India is there, as you mentioned, that it's a record target to chase. But we know that what kind of cricket England plays. We know that in the past they have proved last time around when India was there in 2021, the target was more than 370 and they chased. It happens. It is always difficult to chase the target of 350 or in excess for any team. It happens, but it happens from 10 times. It can happen only one. So this England team has the potential, but we know that the kind of bowler we have Jasprit Bumrah, and we know that what kind of bowling he did in the first innings. He broke the multiple records. If Bumrah once again he displays that type of performance, definitely it's going to be difficult for this England team. We know that Bumrah has emerged as a hero, not only for the Indian cricket fraternity, but the world cricket fraternity. If we talk about the cricket, especially there is always, we talk about the batsmen, because the game is dominated by the batsmen. But the way Bumrah has came out, everyone in the world, whether they are English batsmen, they're Australian bowlers, everyone is talking about his credential, because if you take a look, his stats, 14 fifer he took in the first innings in the Headingley. And talking about he's as a bowler, he has the most wicket. He's the bowler with the most wickets in the SENA countries. If you talk about the Asian bowlers, Pakistan great Wasim Akram has 146 wickets in the SENA countries, but Jasprit Bumrah at the age of 31 has 150 wickets. So you can think the quality of the Jasprit Bumrah. He has rose as a colossal figure among the cricketing fraternity when we talk about the batters, but a bowler doing such performance and receiving such applaud throughout the world, it is commendable. A lot will depend on Bumrah, how he controls the baseball, because we know that England once gets into groove, if they are not losing a wicket in the first session, definitely, then it may become difficult for India. But close to this young Indian team, the way they batted.
Absolutely. England need 350 more runs to win. An intriguing day is on the cards. We'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs, Narayan. Hollywood star Brad Pitt, joined by co-stars Damson Idris and Kerry Condon, walked the red carpet at the European premiere of the high-octane racing drama F1 in London on Monday. In the film, Pitt portrays Sonny Hayes, a rebellious former driver who returns to Formula One to support a struggling team and mentor its rookie talent. F1, distributed by Warner Brothers, hits theatres globally starting Wednesday. Its North American release alongside debuts in India, Japan, Spain and other countries follows on Friday. Adding to the star power, actor Tom Cruise made a surprise appearance at the premiere, where he was seen greeting Brad Pitt, Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali and the film's director Joseph Kosinski. Now, June 1975, a radio crackled, a nation held its breath. With one announcement, democracy dimmed and dictatorship took root. The emergency wasn't just a political storm, it was a direct assault on the Indian constitution, the courts and the citizen. In our next report, we revisit the verdict that shook the government and the silence that followed.
भाइयों और बहनों, राष्ट्रपति जी ने आपातकाल की घोषणा की है।
This announcement marked the beginning of one of the darkest chapters in India's democratic history, a time of unprecedented repression. But what triggered it was a judicial verdict from the Allahabad High Court, and the Supreme Court's refusal to fully stay that order. On June 12, 1975, Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha of the Allahabad High Court delivered a landmark judgment declaring then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's 1971 election from the Rai Bareli constituency null and void due to electoral malpractices. Indira Gandhi appealed to the Supreme Court, where Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer refused to grant a full stay on the High Court's ruling on June 24, 1975. The very next day, the emergency was imposed. What followed was an era of authoritarianism, and democracy in India was pushed to the brink. Fundamental rights guaranteed, equality before law, right to life and personal liberty were suspended immediately after the declaration. By January 1976, Article 19 was also suspended, effectively snatching away the rights of free speech, press, association, and peaceful assembly. As the machinery of state suppression kicked in, the judiciary wasn't spared either. Lawyers who dared to speak out in defense of civil liberties were arrested. In March 1976, without any prior notice, 200 chambers of practicing lawyers at Delhi's 30 Hazari Court were demolished, and 43 lawyers were sent to jail. Soon, attention turned to High Court judges who had passed verdicts against the government's excesses. Many were transferred or faced punitive action for their rulings. But the most prominent casualty of judicial independence during the emergency was Justice H.R. Khanna. He was the senior-most judge in the Supreme Court and the natural successor to become the Chief Justice of India. But in the ADM Jabalpur case, where the core issue was the suspension of fundamental rights during emergency, Justice Khanna stood alone in dissent.
जो आतंक का माहौल था उसमें जजों को इतना ज़बरदस्त डराया गया। एन रे का केस पहले से ही चल रहा था, यानी 7-8 जजों को सुपरसीड करके जो एन रे को चीफ जस्टिस बनाया था, तो ऐसे भी जुडिशरी डरी हुई थी। तो जबलपुर का एक केस है जिसमें जीने का अधिकार भी जुडिशरी के माध्यम से इंदिरा गांधी सरकार ने नागरिकों से छीन लिया था।
His principled stand cost him dearly. The Indira Gandhi government superseded him and appointed a junior judge, Justice Mirza Hamidullah Beg, as the Chief Justice instead. In protest, Justice Khanna resigned the very same day.
Justice Khanna यह स्वीकार करने के लिए तैयार नहीं थे कि किसी भी हालत में सरकार द्वारा किसी नागरिक से उसके जीने का हक और अदालत में न्याय मांगने का अधिकार यह छीन लिया गया। अपने डिसेंटिंग जजमेंट के लिए जस्टिस खन्ना को क्या कीमत चुकानी पड़ी, यह बात भारतीय लोकतंत्र के सबसे काले अध्याय के पन्नों में अंकित है।
Indira Gandhi's authoritarian grip extended to the constitution itself, which she amended multiple times during the emergency to consolidate her power. The 38th Amendment took away the judiciary's power to review the emergency. The 39th Amendment barred courts from questioning the election of the Prime Minister altogether. But the most alarming was the 42nd Amendment, often called the mini-constitution, which altered 40 different provisions of the constitution under Article 368. In independent India's 75-year constitutional history, this remains the only amendment that even changed the preamble of the Constitution. The very soul of the Constitution was suffocated during the emergency. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.